From the EPAWA headquarters in South Allentown, Pennsylvania, it's time for Weather Weeklies, an informative video of the ins and outs of weather that affect you most in the EPAWA coverage area. The following segment is a weekly video blog, and the opinions of the forecaster do not necessarily reflect the opinions of the staff of Eastern PA Weather Authority LLC as a whole, nor its constituents. Without further ado, here is meteorologist Bobby Martrus with Weather Weeklies.
And good Sunday morning, another edition of Weather Weeklies for Sunday, January 8th, 2017. This is the first one we've done in the last 3 weeks because we had the holidays each of the last 2 Sundays. We are going to go to the long range here. It was a doom and gloom long range that we released on Friday, and a lot of people were upset that the winter was canceled. Well, it's not completely canceled yet. It doesn't look good for the pattern overall. It does not look good for the month of January. We are below normal, of course, right now. That lasts for about the 10th, but then we are going to an above normal period right here, 11th to 16th, and it actually stays at least slightly above normal after that point. So we're not going to be in the best pattern, but you got to remember it's January, so it doesn't, if you're in this above normal time frame and you're in the 50s, you're obviously not getting snow. But if you do get in this a different time frame here, or it's slightly above normal, and you're only talking about 40 for a high instead of the normal 35. You can get some storm-induced cold where it draws its own cold air into it. There's some setups that can allow for some temporary cold within these ranges here. Remember, this is the 11th to the 16th as a whole here for above normal. It does not mean every single day in that range will be above normal. The period averages above normal. We have a couple different situations, or the precipitation events that we're going to be following. The first one is going to be on Tuesday. And if it gets in here at a certain, depending on what time it comes in and what the temperatures are at the time. You remember this is out on the leading, and once the cold air is leaving here, this is coming in here, leaving right around the 10th or so. But this precipitation is coming in right around the 10th. So initially it's going to be cold enough that you're going to have, especially in central PA, some snow on the front end and maybe going over to some icing and then eventually rain. Okay, so you will get some opportunity for some front end precipitation. Another big one that we're looking at is next weekend. Now, the 13th, right here, I think it starts off too warm, and there's an opportunity, if there's a high pressure strong enough over southeastern Canada as projected currently, we could have some wintry precipitation to deal with. Now, there are some members of the GFS and ensembles, especially, that are very aggressive with that time frame with snow. You can have that in that situation with overrunning. We've seen that in 2003, for example. There's I think of the President's Day storm we're talking about. We have a serious overrunning event with a lot of snow. It can happen. The Canadian model showed that last night. I wouldn't latch on to that idea right now, though, just because there's so many things that are going to be going on between now and next weekend to really say one way or the other what's going to happen. Okay, and we need to see more support with other models showing that also. January as a whole, though, since we are heading this above normal period, we'll head at least slightly above normal, +1 to +3 Celsius. It's actually quite warm. But the good news here is for drought concerns, we are above normal projecting the next 2 months. So this is good. Any kind of rain or snow or a mix or in between, any precipitation whatsoever is going to be good for restoring the rivers, lakes, streams, reservoirs, things like that. We were below normal last year. We start off 2017 in the right foot. We'll be okay. January snowfall will be below normal as a result of this warm period, but again, it only takes one storm to change that. And then February as a whole, we're still going to above normal snowfall because we're going to go with slightly below normal temperatures. There's signs that February is going to be much better. Okay, again, they're just signs. They're going out a little bit too far for my liking anyway. Let's deal with the next couple of weeks, though. We have below normal right now. These are the new graphics we put on the long-range outlooks in 5-day intervals. So this is going from Friday, the 6th to the 10th. Below normal, of course, we're feeling that right now. But as we get into the 11th to the 15th, we get into an above normal pattern from all across the deep south here, all the way into the northeast United States. Again, this is relative to averages here. So this is January. This doesn't mean we're getting 70s. So don't see the red and be like, oh no, wow. We will have some 50s in that time frame. Okay. 50s near 60 down here by Philly. A couple of those days. Not every day, but some of those days. And then below normal is going to be kept out here in the northern tier and Pacific Northwest. And we get into the final 11 to 15 day period. Not much different here. Again, this is going up to Inauguration Day. I don't really see it change up into that point. Maybe even after this. It's still above normal after that, I think. And the real change doesn't come, according to the Euro Weeklies and several other climate models and longer range analogs that look like February is going to be a lot better. At least what we're looking at right now. The setup is such that it could be a lot better anyway. Now, we're going to get into the winter outlook because A lot of people just go to the winter outlook and they take it verbatim and then just look for the bottom line of how much snow we're going to get, and I get that. But we did outline in the outlook what could go wrong areas and why this would not work out. Okay, and we had a front-loaded winter and the second half of winter being warmer. Well, now it looks like it's going to flip the opposite. There was a reason for that. Okay, one of those reasons, number one reason we listed here, this is the number one reason, is the QBO. This is the quasi-biennial oscillation, which I'll go into what this is in the next frame here. But the QBO came in at plus 15.09 for the month of December, which is pretty high. Those are westerlies, and they became more strongly positive, and it is not what we projected. Okay, it's not what anybody projected. If you see these aggressive outlooks, everybody expected the QBO based on analogs that we use and the low solar that is taking place this year to remain on the weaker side. It did not happen, and it continued to strengthen. Now, if something was unforeseen, and if there's anyone out there that is telling you they can predict accurately how the QBO is going to respond month to month, this is a month-to-month signal that comes out. If anybody can tell you accurately that they know what the QBO is going to do going forward, they're full of it. I'm telling you right now, they're full of it. This is just a guess, and we were using analogs in the past that showed the QBO weakening a little bit, and it did not do it. So because it didn't do it, your polar vortex is stuck over the polar regions. We'll get into this in the next frame here. That keeps it a little bit on the milder side, or at least transient cold shots instead of sustained. The second thing is the PDO dropping toward neutral or faster than expected. That did not happen. We'll cross this off. It's still a positive PDO up in the northeast or northern Pacific there, near the Gulf of Alaska. The blocking is not realized. This one here, we'll put a check mark next to that too, because it's, for the most part, it has not been. Okay, that can change, and we get into more favorable blocking pattern. Usually starts around the middle of January and is more favorable toward the end of winter. So we're going to look for this going forward. AO becomes too strongly negative. That didn't happen because the polar vortex is stuck over the polar regions. Winter takes on a 95, 96 look. That didn't happen. Okay. PDO maintains positive warm longer than expected. Here's the other one. This is why I think that once we get into the second half of winter, we're going to turn into a better pattern. So it's not going to be a front-loaded winter. It's going to be a back-loaded winter if that happens, and that's in large part because of this PDO maintaining positive longer than expected. You have to remember, when we did the winter outlook, it actually looked like it was going to, the PDO was going to go neutral or maybe even positive. Negative. So, and it didn't. So that obviously changes things downstream. Let's get to the quasi-biennial oscillation. I'm going to play this little video here for you, and this is going to just give you a look at what the QBO does. It starts off here in 1980 and goes forward. Now these the reds here are the westerlies. The blues are the easterlies. What these are stratospheric winds along the equator, and they're trade winds. All right, and they dictate a lot of things that go on in our atmosphere. If the westerlies are indicated here by the reds, and then they're replaced, and it's just like a cycle. I can't say it right. It's a cycle that goes every 26 to 29 months, and it keeps alternating. Okay, the easterlies are then replaced by the westerlies, and the westerlies weaken. Okay, it's between 10 and 30 millibars in the atmosphere is what we're talking about here. It gets strong here with the easterlies, and then it starts to weaken, and then replaced by westerlies over the top. This is where we're at right now. We're at the westerlies point right now, where the westerlies are over the top, and they're still very strong. They're still plus 15.09. So what does that do? What that does in a sense, if these are stronger along the equator, these trade winds, it keeps the polar vortex stronger. Okay, and we didn't think that was going to happen because it was a low solar year. So I'm starting to think the solar influence is not as great as people make it seem. For one, two, the polar vortex up here is sitting right over the polar regions, and instead of starting to come back down, being displaced and split, it just keeps sitting there. I mean, it's getting attacked from all different sides, and we can see that on the next frame here. Here is a look at the polar vortex, kind of sitting right over the polar regions right here. Now it's trying to get attacked here on different sides with warming episodes to try to, what this can do is temporarily dislodge it from the polar regions and spill it down into the United States. Now this is also in the stratosphere, not at the surface. There's no guarantee that this downwells to the surface. All right, but every attempt of an attack here is just, all it does is just nudge it a little bit, then it goes right back to the poles again because it's so strong, and it wasn't expected to be that strong. So that's a problem when you're trying to do a 4 to 5 month forecast, and you're expecting the forecast, the polar vortex, to be easily split or displaced. And if it doesn't happen, obviously that changes a lot of things. It changes a lot of things. So until we see this this weaken a little bit, maybe see the QBO drop a little bit, which we are seeing signs of that taking place, then we can start getting more cold and sustained cold here. But I don't see that happening. The rest of the winter, for the most part, I think is going to be a lot of ups and downs. You're going to have some warm periods, but you also have some cold periods, and that means you're going to have to time things perfectly, and you have to look for tropical forcing help. Well, right now, tropical forcing isn't really helping either. This is a look at the European model, the European ensembles, and you can see it kind of just dilly-dallies that are around here in the circle of death, so it's not really much help here. Now, the important takeaway here, it doesn't necessarily have to come out into the favorable phases, which I circled here. Phase 1, 2, 3, and 8 are the favorable phases here in January, February, March. Okay, right now, your focus of everything is over here on the maritime continent. This is not a good spot where you want it to help our pattern here. Okay, what you need to have it happen, need to have the forcing move away from the maritime continent over to the Western Hemisphere. If that happens, then we have a better opportunity for sustained, at least somewhat sustained cold and a stormier pattern in the east, especially if you get into these phases right here, 8, 1, 2. Okay, see, everything's kind of going that direction. It's not coming out. You see the ensemble spaghetti plots kind of going into these areas also. As long as it gets away from the maritime continent, that's at least a bonus. All right, we're not going to have these really long episodes of warmth if that happens. It's going to take some time to get there, and it's going to be, again, after the third. Once we get into the 4th week of January, I think we start to see some changes a little bit, but the real change doesn't occur downstream until we get to the month of February, into the beginning of February. All right, so what we have to do in the meantime, since we're not getting help from the stratosphere, we're not getting help from tropical forcing, obviously not getting help from the QBO, we need perfectly timed systems. Now, this is a tweet that was put out by Ed Valley. He used to be with AccuWeather. He's now with Band Weather. I invite you to check those guys out. They're very good. This is a graphic he put out on Twitter this morning, and this is showing the system that's coming in next weekend. Okay, so now we have this opportunity. And he writes here that it has trouble written all over it. Devils in the details. Watch forecast closely this week for ice. He circled this area right in here for that opportunity for ice. What happens is you have a strong high sitting over southeastern Canada. This is the setup for next weekend now. Funneling in this cold air, and you have all this moisture pushing in this direction like this. Well, if it's going to run into that cold air, this in place because of this high being here temporarily, again, this is not a sustained pattern. If it's in the right spot at the right time, it can funnel in the cold air, and we get some snow and ice back here. Now, what this does is, let me get to a different image here. This is the GFS that ran last night. Just to give you an example, you have an area low pressure down south here, a warm front that's situated like this, okay? Big high pressure sitting right here, all right? This is funneling in your cold air. And this is what the GFS and the Canadian especially did last night. It had this very strong high here. Which the stronger this is, the better, because then when this area of low pressure moves to the north here, it can't run through the high. The only way it can continue further north, which it may eventually do, is if this high retreats. Well, it's all going to come down to timing then, if that's the case, because if this high is here and it sticks around for a little bit, okay, any of this precipitation running into it, again, low pressure, here's your warm front, you're going to have ice along the warm front, and you have snow here, and this warm front can't advance northward. Okay, if it does, obviously we change over to rain, because this side down here in this sector here is all warmer and rain on this side of the warm front. To the north, all the cold's locked in here, and you get snow. And you can get a pretty tremendous amount of snow, actually, if it's set up right. This is a very fluid situation, though. Devil's in the details. Just an example of how something perfectly timed can come into our area if everything else plays a part. Everything is crucial. It's all thread the needle. So if you're going to get something this month, it's going to be a thread the needle situation. Here's the GFS ensemble members. Again, they're all doing the same thing with this front. Showing you got a warm front here, warm front here, warm front here. They're all showing the same thing. And overrunning snow up to the north of it. And the different positions of this warm front, this one's way up north here. So you get an idea of where these warm fronts are. To the north of it, you get heavy snow, ice, and rain along the boundary, and then rain south of it. Okay? Some of them are pretty far south with it. You know what I mean? So you have an opportunity for more areas in the interior, at least the northern tier, to get into some snow. You're going to have a little bit of this on Tuesday, not nearly to this extent, Okay, this is starting next weekend only. You can live a little bit of this on Tuesday and the front end, and that would be out here most likely in central PA with some mainly icing, but could have some snow up front. But what they're showing for next weekend and why you're seeing such robust totals is you're seeing the overrunning precipitation running into that cold, and if that cold's in place, it can snow and snow and snow and snow as long as its frontal boundary is not moving. Okay, and if it stays there because the high pressure is in place, then you can get some significant snow. This has to be a perfectly timed thing, though. Everything has to work together, and if it doesn't, you're getting rain, or you might get a brief mix to rain, which I really think is the most probable situation right now. Probably another episode of Tuesday. I know they're very aggressive right now in the ensembles. This is probably going to change. Let's go to the long-range pattern for any signs of change. Again, we're going out to the 20th here. This is not an ideal pattern here. You got a positive EPO out here. You got a huge ridge going here. I mean, this is just screaming warmth. Okay, especially with the higher heights over here. I don't expect anything through at least inauguration day, except for something that's perfectly timed. This time frame for this here is next weekend, so it'll be the 14th, 15th time frame for that to come in. You're going to need something perfectly timed in order for that to happen. And that while you can have those episodes for the rest of January, I think it's going to be a lot of that. Everything has to be perfectly timed, thread the needle. Otherwise, for the large, and favoring the interior, otherwise, for the large part of us, we'll be looking at below normal snowfall going into the month of February. However, February looks to be different, where we're going to get a little bit of a change. I think you're going to like February. All right, now this is still speculation once you go out that far, and we need to see things come together perfectly. But there is that opportunity that February looks a lot better, and we have a backloaded winter. And we can make up for some lost ground, hopefully. I'm Eastern PA Weather Authority meteorologist Bobby Marchers. That is this edition of Weather Weeklies for Sunday, January 8th. Hope you join us again next week. Take care.